It helps.
Sorry, guys.
The force, the weight bearing force, helps you keep your bones stronger, because you're weight bearing and you do different activities. The strength training, obviously, lifting, pushing, pulling things can be very beneficial. And it's a balance activity, right? So the more you practice different balance activities, the more you can improve your balance in different environments and different surfaces. So all these factors can be addressed with gardening. Different activities such as digging, weeding, pushing a lawnmower, or a wheelbarrow, carrying bags of potting mix, but only if we do them correctly, right? So if we do them wrong, it could be very detrimental to ourselves. So today we're going to just kind of show you, that changes, some just better ways to do things, okay? Different ways to do things. So the big movement guidelines, some of the big things that you really want to think about, and if you're not a gardener, it's not just gardening. These could be with everyday activities as well. But you don't want to, if you're weeding, you don't want to do prolonged weeding, right? Because it's a strain on your knees, your hamstrings are in a short position, and it can definitely fatigue your back muscles. That doesn't mean kneeling is bad, it just means you don't want to do it for long periods of time. You want to take frequent breaks, you want to stand up, you want to stretch your legs, stretch your back. Half kneeling is not a bad thing, as long as you got a cushion under your knees, whether you're full kneeling or half kneeling. But you want to switch your legs, because if you're half kneeling for a long time, that's shifting your pelvis, and that can give you some issues in the lower back or the SI joint. Hip hinge squat, bumpers reach, or half lunges. Those are the different ways that we reach downward, and we use those in a lot of different environments, not just gardening. We're gonna go over these things. And then the last one is switching past and changing positions, right? Anytime you hold a position for a long period of time, your muscles are going to fatigue and they're not going to support the joint that you are using, right? So a lot of times I'll say, if I just hold this bottle of water here, it's not heavy, I can hold it, but the longer I hold it, the more tired my muscles get. So they get fatigued, and then it starts to burn a little bit, and then my muscles start to ache, and then I really want to put this bottle of water down, right? So when you're doing anything in a prolonged position, those muscles are going to fatigue, and then it's going to put more force on the joints themselves. They won't be as stable. So the keys to safeguarding: posture, using the right muscles, the correct muscles, protecting our joints, avoiding doing things over and over and over, because when we do something repetitively, sometimes those muscles get tired, right? And they don't just get fatigued and poop out on you, but they irritate those tendons, right? Because they're not working the way they normally should. And that's when you get those tendinitis. And using the right tools with the jobs, different jobs. So we have to think about the posture, we want to think about the joints and the muscles. Are we using the right muscles to do the task, and are we protecting our joints by using the muscles? So I show this picture because I used to have a picture. When you're out in the country and you see those wooden folk art cutouts, and it's like a lady's backside, she's bent over, and that's all you see is the backside. Well, I see a lot of that, and when I'm out with my volunteers, you'll see people, or just driving around the neighborhood, you see a lot of people bent over like that, and then from behind, all you see is their bum, right? Well, that's bad. And I always want to stop and say, can I show you how to do that a little better way? But whatever. Okay, so if you look at that picture, the knees are locked, right? So we're not getting any work from the thigh muscles or the butt muscles or the hamstrings, because they can't move, they're stuck in the position. And there's a lot of strain on the lower back because the legs are locked. Those muscles are they're fully stretched. Okay, so there's a lot of strain there. And then the reaching down part is putting a lot of force up through the arms into the neck and the shoulders. So we're going to show you how to do that a little bit easier with less strain. Okay, slideshow. Yes. So while I'm waiting for that, I'll tell you a little. There it is. Oops. Good. So when we're lifting things, 10 pounds, if lifted appropriately, is 10 pounds. But if it's lifted with poor technique or inappropriately, like the first picture, that actually puts 100 pounds of force on your lower back.
Hey.
Hello. So in this first picture, that person's doing that the worst possible way, right? All of that weight and force is going into their neck, their upper back, and then down into their lower back. So that's a lot of strain. When you're lifting things, you want to use your leg muscles and your abdominal muscles. You want to squat and pick up the load, hold it close to you, and then stand up. The back muscles are not lifting muscles, they're postural muscles. They're there to help you stay upright, but it's your stomach and your hips and your legs that are supposed to lift the load. So we're gonna talk about that technique in a moment. Okay, so a proper lifting technique would be to get into a squatting position if you can. And I know that's a challenge for some people because maybe our knees aren't as good as they used to be. But in an ideal world, you want to get it down low. You want to get your feet a little wider apart, a little wider stance, because then you can get down lower. You don't want to bend forward. You want to stick your butt out behind you, right? So it's this motion, and we call it hip hinging. And we'll talk about that a lot in oral therapy. But hip hinging means that you're bending at your hips.
We got one more for you.
Oh. You're bending at your hips and not your lower back, right? So you have kind of a flat back when you come down. The other important part of that is if you look, she's got her weight behind her. If she's leaning forward, then that weight's going to transfer to the front of her knees. So you don't want your knees to pass your toes. So anytime you bend down, get your booty in the back, right? Keep the weight behind you so that your legs and your hips are doing all of the work. So in the second picture there, she's picked that up and she's turned her feet, right? Because you don't want to twist, you don't want to pivot because that's a lot of strain on your back, shoulders, and neck. So she's taking a few steps and she's going to put it down on that bench there. Take a little break and then she can pick it up and bring it closer to her, get a better grip underneath it and carry it to wherever she's going. So when you lift, you want to lift with your legs. You want to squat with your hips in a hinge position. You want to hold it close to you. You don't want to rotate or twist at the spine. And you want to engage your core. So have you guys all been through therapy? You all know what your core is? Lower abs, buns of steel, abs of steel, right? And thigh muscles. So anytime you're reaching for something or picking it up, you want to engage those muscles first. Just like when you get out of the chair. You know, if you're going to stand up, if you push your feet into the floor, tighten your butt cheeks, tighten your abs, and then stand up, then your legs are pushing you upward. And it's the same thing when you're lifting things. There we go. Okay, so you don't want to pick things up like that from the ground because obviously that's a lot of strain on your back. That's diagonal mulch. And dragging it backwards is not great either. Right, because that's all strain that's going up through your shoulders, into your neck, into your lower back. So you want to know, you want to push things if you can, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And you want to not pull things backwards, right? If you pull things backwards, that's also a lot of strain on your back, shoulders, and your neck. I'm not really sure why that picture ended up sideways, but what they're doing is they're helping each other just kind of slide that mulch out of the trunk into the wheelbarrow. And that's what he's doing in that picture as well. Just, if you could slide things into a wheelbarrow, then you're not just pushing, lifting it, putting it down, dragging it across your driveway or your sidewalk to the area that you want to take it. So other options, I don't know how this ended up that they're all sideways, but you get the gist, okay? So other options are like maybe you just open the trunk and you put something in a bucket or a trunk, and then you take it with a dolly to where you want it to be, or it's more manageable and you can carry it. Or you put it on a dolly like that, you slide it out of the trunk onto the dolly, and then you can take it from point A to point B. When you're shopping, you know, those guys at Home Depot, the Lowe's, and ladies, I shouldn't say just guys, but you know, they're there, they'll help you if you ask, right? And they'll even take it out to your car and put it in your trunk for you. So that's always a good idea, and if you can get it delivered, but then you have that dilemma of, I just got this giant pile of mulch delivered, so how do I get it from point A to point B? So we will talk about that as well. In fact, we'll talk about that next. So if you're So these pictures, it's kind of hard to see what's going on there, but I'll narrate. When you are digging, you want to dig smaller amounts, right? Manageable loads. So you want to test your load. Is it soil? Is it gravel? Is it mulch? How much can you handle? You want to get vertical over your shovel. So when you push it down into the soil, you want to push, put your foot on it, use your whole body weight to push down into that. And you want your hands wider apart. See, my hands are wider apart of the shovel because then you have more leverage, right? And then you're going to do that hip hinge and lift your load. And typically what we do is we lift that load and then we go like this, right? Or like that, which is a lot of strain in your back, your shoulders, and your neck. So you want to get down under that load, turn your feet, get a couple more steps in, right? And then deposit it where you want to put it. So again, it's that hip hinge, keeping the load close to you once you lift it up, a little wider, hands wider on the shovel for better leverage, and avoid rotating and tossing that load. So one of the things I tell people a lot about their home activities, this isn't garden related, but it's very body mechanic related. You know, when you're doing certain things, like you're unloading your dishwasher, do you bend down like this and take it out and turn, put it in the cover? Yeah, we all do that, right? So if you start thinking about how you do things every day, not just gardening, but your everyday activities, you can change the way you're moving and be a lot more comfortable and actually use more muscle. So, you know, when you're unloading your dishwasher, get a wider stance, turn your feet, get a couple more steps in, put it on the counter. Take it from the counter, put it in the cupboard, different things like that. Or maybe you have an island and you can take it, turn it and put it on the island. And then take it to the next place. So there's different ways you can think about your movement patterns with everyday activities, because we do things the same way. Over and over and over. And that's when, you know, somebody says, well, I bent over and then I couldn't move. Well, it was all the times that you bent over before that one time that kind of accumulated. Okay, we're gonna talk about raking now. When you were raking, generally, see how he's reaching out there? We tend to get as much as we can, right? All in one swoop. And so what are we doing? We've got that long lever and it's all back and it's hard, you know, we're pulling it towards us. So what you want to do is you just want to bring it a little closer to you, right? So you're going to move with your load. You're going to start here and bring it towards you. Just a little shorter motion instead of going like this and like this. Which brings me to my other home thing is vacuuming. If you vacuum, we all do this, right? So it's not the greatest thing for you. But if you put some good music on and you do this with your vacuum cleaner, you're getting your steps in, and it's way better for your back, again, your shoulders, your neck, all those different joints. If you go with it instead of reaching out and bringing it towards you. So again, if you're raking, you want to bend with your hips, right? You don't want to rotate, twist, you want to turn your feet, bring it close to you, and then work it into your pile, right? You also want to think about what you're raking. You know, are they acorns? Are they leaves? Is it wet? Is it dry? Because wet leaves are a lot heavier than dry leaves, right? So it might be worth waiting or just doing some of those leaves and letting the rest dry out instead of trying to get it all done at once.
And for taking its nice time.
It is. It's working. It's just easy. Okay. I don't know why the pictures are sideways.
No idea.
But you get the gist. Okay, so you're picking up your pile of leaves or pine cones. And you do, again, you don't want to do this, right? So there's different ways you can get those leaves out. You can use those handy dandy little hand things. And you get in your squat position, or maybe you get into a staggered stance. And then you transfer it to a container and you can transfer that container to somewhere else. Or you can get down, get that load and put it in your wheelbarrow, right? And again, you're trying not to twist. You're trying to use your legs and your hips. Now we're going to talk about leading and ground level tasks. So 2 pictures on the right. There's that picture again of that person bent completely over, which is most people, I don't know, they bend over like that, but obviously that's not good. And even the one below there, he's got one knee bent, so he's kind of partway there, it's not great, because again, he's got his arm, that long lever is reaching downward. Now over here, we got kneeling, half kneeling, and the golfer's lunge. So ideally, kneeling and half kneeling and golfer's lunge are better than bending over, but not everybody can bend, get up and down from the ground in that position. So you might need some help, and again, I'm sorry about the pictures, every time I do these presentations, there's one technical
Something
problem.
that does.
I don't know what happened, but you'll see there's a kneeling cushion, there's one of those garden kneelers where you can either sit on it or you can turn it over and kneel on it, and you can use it to push upward. And that's just one of those little collapsible stools, plastic stools that you can get at Harbor Freight, or sometimes they come at All Days, TJ Maxx. But it's really lightweight, it collapses, you can carry it around with you wherever you're working. So that can be useful. So if you look here, she's kneeling on both knees, she's got the kneeler there, so she can use that to push herself up. She's kind of, see how her back is straight? So she's still in a pretty neutral position there. And the same thing where she's half kneeling, she's still in a pretty neutral position there. And she can switch knees without getting up by using those arm rests on the garden kneeler. Now, back to the half kneeling. It's not a bad thing, but again, you don't want to stay in that position for a long time because your muscles get tired. And then they're not giving you that stability that you need, like around the SI and the hip area, the pelvis area. So sometimes if you stay half kneeling, you can really give yourself some discomfort later. So you want to switch knees, switch positions, and mix it up a little bit. So here she's using that little step there to help her when she's ready to get up. She's going to push on that step. It's nice and stable, and that'll give her the little boost that she needs. And she actually needs a knee replacement, so she's doing pretty good there. So again, I apologize for the sideways pictures, but when we talk about just regular activity like pruning, we end up, we're up, we're low, we're in the middle. So here he's sitting on a stool or a kneeler, he's pruning at like waist level and a little bit lower so he doesn't have to bend over. Very helpful that way. Some of the other things you can do when you're pruning is, you can use a pole pruner. You can use, longer handled pruners versus shorter handled pruners. What else do I want to tell you guys about pruning? I think I'll touch on that in the next segment. But back to the ground level and the weeding stuff, maybe that's not an option for you. You can't get up and down. So the raised bed is another option if you have that available to you. So then you can sit on like a high stool, or you can stand. There's different tools out there. That's a kind of like a mid-range handled tool. It's not short, it's not long, but it's just right for reaching against that raised bed there. The other thing is, you stand or sit on a bench to pot up your plants. It's could be a potting bench like that, or it could just be anything that you have outside that's convenient. You could sit and pot up your plants and work on them without standing and bending over for long periods of time. You can take just having like a small step ladder out there with you, one of those lightweight ones you can carry around can be really helpful as well. So there's different tools for different tasks, right? So that's one of those mid-length handled tools. That person's kneeling, that's a pole pruner, so he's not on a ladder taking any chances. He can reach a lot of the things with that pole pruner. Sometimes you just need to call professionals if it's a little like really high, right? Just to be on the safe side. There's tools that are long handled. That's a long handled weeder there, where you just step on it, pull it towards you, and the weed pops right out. So if you're working on banding lines, they're here, there, that's an option. And unfortunately, you can't really see the dog there. That's Carly. She's really into weeding. Okay. Then we got to talk about those smaller tasks. When I mentioned repetitive tasks and how it can irritate your muscles and your joints and give you tendonitis. So if you do these tasks for prolonged periods of time, they can irritate your hands, they can irritate your wrists, your elbows. But if you take breaks and maybe do a couple different things, mix it up a little bit, then you'll be using different muscles, different positions, different tools. Choosing the right tool for the right task. Okay, so something as simple as pruning, there's a lot of different size tools out there. Well, those are just the hand tools. But you can also get into some of those big heavy duty equipment tools as well. But, you know, if you're doing something small like deadheading some flowers, you might use those little pruners. But if you're pruning like some branches off of a shrub, then you're gonna wanna use something a little sturdier, so you're not straining your hands, right, or your elbow tendons. You wanna use something a little bit bigger, so you wanna make sure you're using the right tool for the right task. So are you, you wanna think about, are you bending over using a hand trowel to dig a hole to plant something, and you could probably benefit from using a real shovel, or a transplant spade. The hand pruners instead of the loppers. Standing on a ladder with pruners instead of using the pole pruner, stuff like that, can really make a difference in your safety and in your energy expended for the task at hand. There we go. Wheelbarrows. Okay, I always give this quiz to people. Which wheelbarrow do you think is better? The one on the right, the old fashioned one with the metal thing and the wheel up front, or the one on the left with the two wheels with the deeper base behind it? It's kind of hard to see it. Anybody? Left? One on the left. Everybody says the left. But if you look at the next picture, when you go to dump it, all the load's in the back. So when you try to lift it up, you have to get the load up and over to dump it. Whereas on that one, it's a lot easier to dump because the load's in the front of the wheelbarrow. And then see the handles are nice and long, so you can get under, you can get in front of it, keep it close to you, you can lift it up. Whereas the other one, the handles are just right in front, so you can't get any leverage with your whole body. Basically, you're just using your arms. So she's basically just using her arms to lift up, which could irritate her shoulders and her neck. So you can't get in close to her load, but bring it towards her.
I've never seen the one on the left.
Yeah, those are popular because they're plastic and they're really lightweight, but unfortunately they are really hard
Yeah.
to tip over.
And right, this is an example of fulcrum, how you shift it.
Exactly, exactly. The physics.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so size matters, right? The person, the tool, and the task. So the guy on the left there, he's holding a smaller shovel, which is my shovel, and I'm holding his shovel, which is a little bit large for me. I can use it, but ideally the one on the other side is a little bit better for me. So you want to think about, like, are your tools, do they suit you and your stature and your strength and not just your task, but how you feel about using different tools of different sizes. Let me get back to tools. So you want it to fit you, how tall you are, the length of the handles, are they too long for you, are they too short, do you find yourself bending over, not what you're straining your back, are they heavy tools, because they make so many different ones now, you can get some really lightweight tools that can be a lot less work than some of the heavier ones. You can get different sizes, you can get some with enlarged handles or cushioned grips if you have arthritis in your hands or tendonitis in your elbows, and that can be helpful because then you don't need as much force. Then we'll go to mowing here next.
It was just there.
Okay, so mowing. I think you see the one on the left a lot more than the one on the right. Ideally, you want the height of your mower handle to be about mid-waist, so that your elbows are close to you, you can push with your whole body and your legs, not just your upper body, right? So the way he's pushing, he's using a lot of upper body, but if it's down in front of you a little bit lower, you can get more weight behind it. You want to stay like close to it, so you can get in kind of like that power position, right? You can use your legs a lot more to push with. And you always want to push with both arms, right? Not just one arm, because then that's going to strain your one side, your neck, your back, your upper back, your shoulder. So that's something to think about. Maintaining your tools. Are they sharp? Are they clean? Are they lubricated? Do you have the pruners that get stuck in the wood because they need clean, sharpened oil, things like that. A sharper shovel is gonna, obviously it's gonna slice through the dirt a lot easier than one that's not maintained. Shoes do matter. I'm a shoe person. I have my gardening shoes and I have my gardening clogs, but when you were doing different tasks, you wanna think about what shoes you have on, right? So those clogs are nice, but they're not for shoveling, right? They don't have any support for your foot. So that pressure and that force is gonna go through your foot, into your ankle, up to your knee, maybe into your hip, depending on what your circumstances are, how you feel. They're also, they're a little tricky, right? If you're carrying something heavy and you lose your balance and you don't have enough support for your feet and your ankles, things can happen. They can, you can slip, trip, fall, just because you have the wrong shoe on. But, maybe you're just hanging out, pulling a few weeds and you got your clogs on, that's fun. Just think about your task and what you're doing, because if you're wearing like sturdy shoes, hiking shoes, work boots, obviously you're gonna have more traction, more power, more leverage, and you're gonna be a lot safer. Balance is another important thing, right? Because we're out there on uneven surfaces. The grass, maybe a little slope, maybe there's some rocks, paving stones, things like that. So you want to wear appropriate shoes to make sure that you're not having any issues with the balance part of gardening. But you also want to think about planning ahead. Are there obstacles in your way? Are you going to be moving something from point A to point B? Maybe you're just carrying a flower pot or something, but are there obstacles in your way? Are there piles of grass or mulch or uneven surfaces? You want to plan ahead. You want to take your time. And like those portable step stools are really handy if you're in a place where you're not so sure about your footing. You have something you can hold on to, or just getting up and down from the ground. And you don't want to over fatigue, right? If you keep going, your muscles get tired. That's usually when you fall down and lose balance, or something happens. So you want to take breaks. So one of the most important things that you can do when you're gardening or some other physical tasks is take breaks. And just a few minutes even, switch positions. Maybe you're working on a flower bed and you're doing a little pruning and you're doing some weeding. We'll do some weeding, maybe some deadheading, put everything in that little pile, pick the pile up and take it to where you want it to be, and then come back and then do something else. But try not to stay at the same task for long periods of time. It's really easy to get in that mindset when you're working on something. It's starting to look better. You're like, I'll just finish this today. I know I'm gonna feel really good about this, right? But it may not be worth it. Or if you just take a 5-minute break, sit down, have a glass of water or lemonade, and then go back to it, it can make a huge difference. So sometimes just a few hours of gardening spread out over the week, you can get more done than when you do it all in one day and you can't move the next day. So something to think about. Garden smarter, not harder. There you go. Okay, so I kind of gave you a lot of information real fast there. But does anyone have any questions?
All makes sense.
Sounds good, doesn't it? But it's, basically it's changing our habits. Our movement patterns become habits and we do things in certain ways. So sometimes if we just think about what we're doing and how can we do it better, protect ourselves, our joints, our muscles, our spine, avoiding awkward positions, slips and trips, things like that can make a big difference. You get a lot more work done with less pain and strain. In the end.
My husband's always reminding me not to bend over to pick something up.
I think that's probably the most common thing that everybody does. It's just so much easier to just bend over and reach for it. But if you strengthen, every time you stand up and sit down, you're basically doing a squat. So if you think about using those muscles, tightening them up, the glutes, the abs, the buns, the steel, the thighs, and you use those to propel yourself upward, and you use those when you reach down and pick something up. It's like you're doing an exercise all day long. You're making yourself stronger, and then sometimes those movement patterns will become the new habit instead of bending and reaching and twisting.
Do you guys have any tools that you guys like or found
Yeah,
that is helpful?
My husband's pretty good at it. I was gonna say, you should have a class so you can do all your landscaping, that's all
I know, it needs it.
along here.
Something like ratcheting pruners, have you guys seen those? They're pruners, but they have like a little ratcheting mechanism, so each time you squeeze it, it goes a little further, but you don't have to use your full grip, it just goes in little segments. So there's ratcheting loppers, there's ratcheting pruners, so something as simple as that can make a big difference if you have arthritis or elbow issues, you know, you're not straining yourself as much.
I was gonna ask, because you work a lot with people with osteoarthritis. What are the top tips, maybe, if someone has that? Any other ideas
Well,
or?
the bending over thing is huge,
Yeah.
right? So the big thing is the kneeling, because when you have arthritis, it's usually in your knees, shoulders and hands, right, which is
Yeah,
a lot with gardening. So, you know, we try to do the kneeling thing, but we try not to do it extreme, or we sit on a bench, or we sit on one of those garden kneelers where you can use the handles, you can flip it over and sit on it.
Yeah, my sister got me one of those kneeling things. And years ago, and I thought, I don't need this, but I use it a lot now.
Yeah, I mean, it really does come in handy.
Yeah. It really does help.
That
you
way,
get
if
up.
you are kneeling and you wanna get up, you can use your whole body to get up, right? You can use your leg and both arms and not just, you know, one leg and do them.
I find it very scary, I'm an amputee, so I have one of those benches. First of all, I can't kneel,
Right,
and I could, but I never can. It's too wobbly for me. And again, if I'm sitting on it, then I have to lean. So if I'm going for, you know, a lead over here, and then I feel really unstable. So I don't know, I can't kneel, I can't, I don't know. My neighbor has looks like a cooler on with wheels, and you open it up and it has all your tools inside. That I think would work for me, but I mean, that's one reason why I'm here. I don't know how to garden, and that's like part of my therapy. I've always gardened, and I just, you know, it's too uneven. I can't find
It's too
anything
uneven.
that I feel safe
is it, the stool feel like it's too low?
on.
Is the
No,
cooler a
it's
little higher?
okay, but they come down, you've got your handles, right?
Yeah,
And then your bench, and then it comes down like this again, like another U, and it's not,
just doesn't feel,
like if you had 4 legs, that would be better, but these tend to, because if you're on uneven ground, these aren't even.
yeah, so you're still rocking.
Yeah, you're
It's like
still
kind of rocking side.
So I tried, you know, I don't know.
Yeah, that's tough, because everywhere you could be on a slight slant or uneven ground.
something.
That, I know that, they had those actually at St. Margaret up on the 3rd and 4th floor, whatever, those are awesome.
Raised beds.
But, yeah, they're fabulous, and they use that for therapy for vegetables and
Mhm.
stuff like that. But, we have a cottage up north, and all the gardening is around
The edge of the
flowers.
house.
So that's, I think that's a great idea, the standing ones, but
Hmm.
it's actually no place to put it.
So unfortunately, like, it's hard to see in this picture, but that little step stool on the right there, that's a lower one. There's one I have that's like 2 feet high. And for being like a fiberglass plastic product, it's very lightweight. When you pick it up, it collapses. But when I sit on that, it's pretty stable, but I don't know how you are about getting up from something that
I
low.
need handles
You need handles.
or hands.
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm just frustrated, I was thinking I'd get some better ideas,
But yeah, like you can, that's a Belgian block driveway there, so that's very unsteady, unstable.
yeah.
Yeah, so I wouldn't use that one on the green one, the
But
that
all
one.
grass and gardens and things you have to get in, to trim and all that stuff is all uneven.
Mhm.
It is, you're right.
I mean, if I could kneel,
Have you tried it recently though with Shannon? Kneeling
No.
and of any sorts?
not since,
Yeah,
recently, no.
yeah,
I can get up, I've fallen,
yeah.
and like, you know, people want to like push over, I'm like, no,
Mhm.
I can get up myself. So I can kneel if I have to. But to kneel, I
Might be something to, not even just doing that, but just bring up as a goal in your one-on-one sessions. you know.
I'm trying to get up off my stomach for that big ball. I don't want to do.
wonder like, well, I don't know how you feel about something like, you know, the knee scooters. It's got 4 wheels and
Mhm.
handles
Oh, yeah, yeah.
and brakes, so you, or even like the rollators, you can sit on them, then you can also use them to push yourself up, like. I mean, I'd be worried about the wheels on the uneven surfaces.
I like that little cool idea.
You could use it to walk to and from. I don't know.
Yeah, might be helpful to get up and down if you had something like that and something to sit on separately. You could push up.
Maybe my new socket setup will help.
There's probably things out there. It's just like trial and error with a lot of it too, unfortunately. And finding something stable enough that you can still push up with. Or could you push up with your cane in front of you or something? I'm not sure. You know,
If I could do my sit to stands, I'd be
Yeah.
fine.
I know. That's
She was
tough.
talking about that a little bit earlier. Sit to stand, she didn't call it that, the squats and.
That's exactly what I'm talking about,
yeah.
yes, it's a stance. So a lot of times I have people do a little experiment with me, you guys wanna do it? Just come halfway out on your chair. Okay, we're gonna stand up, your feet are a little bit wider apart, like hip width, and now push your feet into the floor. Do you feel your leg muscles tightening up? You push straight down with your whole sole of your foot, okay? Now tighten your lower stomach muscles, if you did sit to stand, you already did this, right? Tighten your stomach muscles, tighten your butt cheeks, push your feet down, and then stand up. Do you feel the difference when your legs propel you up out of the chair? And then when you sit down, if you sit down gradually, you're using those muscles. That's an exercise. That's a sit to stand, but that's also a squat. And that's what you need when you're out there and you're trying to get up and down, picking things up, or even in the house. But if you, as soon as you push your feet down, you feel those muscles tighten up. And that's kind of like helps you find them. Then you're like, okay, there, I got them. And you tuck the stomach, because that's gonna help you with your core and your center of gravity. So sometimes I have my master gardener friends when I have them do these things. They and then I see them out in the demo gardens, and they're like, I'm engaging my core, Erin.
When I was doing sit to stands in physical therapy, I didn't realize how important they were and how many I would be doing when I got here.
Yeah.
And how often.
Yeah, I mean, it's something you do every day, right?
Oh,
sit
you
down
wanna
and
do
stand
more.
up. So if you think about it, engage those muscles, it makes a big difference.
Is there, and you might have missed, and I might have missed it in the beginning, but if you are raking or pulling weeds or like the dandelions, is there, it's almost, I'm thinking of like something that I use to pick up my dogs, like to scoop up where you don't have to bend over all the way and get it. Is there like a gardening tool where you can,
There
like a
are-
reacher
there-
or grabber
there
of sorts?
are- Let's see if I can find it.
The one you put down, you said for dandelions.
Yeah,
Does it
so
actually pick it all the way up?
it does, there's something called, if you're weeding, they call them grandpa weeders, because there's all different types, like versions of them. But it's a long stick with a, and I had a picture in here. It lifts it'll lift the weed up, and then you just push it under the weed, step on it, go like this, and it pops it right up.
Mhm.
But if you're trying to pick things up, there are these, like, they call them hands, the garden hands. And they're just these like plastic things you slide your hands into. So you can get down here and pick piles of leaves and things like that, right? And they make some that are like just plastic little things.
I think you were before that. Yeah, I think so.
Raking.
I'm sorry.
Wasn't it the one where she was in the
It was
garden?
the raking, yeah. There they are. Yeah, so those are just flimsy little plastic things, but they've actually, I've had them for several years, and they're actually pretty handy, because you can scoop things up with them without having to bend them down, but they also make some with longer arm handles. They make some that look like little mini rakes that are with metal tines, and then they have like longer pieces on them, so you don't have to go down.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
Same thing, we're gonna have to
What
go
about the-
hard as well.
Birthday show that when you put it down and then it closes up over your leaves. Did you see that one?
Oh, yeah, I have seen that one. Yeah, there's one that's like hinged.
Like
You can put it down and then when you
Yeah,
pull it up,
alligator
it
mouth.
closes.
Yeah, you'd close it up and then you.
I like the hand rails are kind of cool because then you don't have to bend down as far. You can use, use those guys to lift. And then the bottom stuff. So the grandpa weeder was, let's see if I can get this right this time. It's just a long handle device that was kind of grab the weed.
Yeah. It's where, I thought it was where
What was there? There it is, that's it there, it's kind of really hard to see, and I apologize for the sideways pictures, but it's kind of like a little claw thing, you just push it down, put your foot on it, press on it, then you pull it backward and it just kind of lifts the weed up out of the soil. There's a lot of longer handled device like tools out there, they're different sizes for different heights of
Do they-
people.
so did they sell those everywhere, or do you have to like go somewhere special to get the longer handled things?
So they actually have some of those things at Lowe's and Home Depot, I think. They're different brands, like I think not Felco, but Fiskars might have one that's similar. I think it's metal, it's not wooden, but there are some different versions of that. But there are some longer handled devices so you don't have to bend over.
Wally, would that be helpful too, like doing it in standing?
I'm thinking. yeah,
For some things at least,
Now you can get longer handled, like mid-length handled, like smaller tools with a longer handle, so that you don't have to bend over as far.
You know what I find I do is, which kills me the next day, is I end up gardening spread eagle and keeping my balance and reaching.
Well, see, that's,
That was the
Well, I mean,
definite
I-
no, she said. That was the definite no, she said.
Yeah, but that's the only way I feel safe. Like if I get my feet planted and, I see I'm working in this area right there,
Mhm.
and then the next day, like my hamstring.
But if you had these longer handled tools, that would save your back and your
Yeah, but
hamstrings.
sometimes you can't get that one.
Not always, but for
Yeah.
80%,
Yeah. I'll have to go through all our stuff, because we're going up there Memorial Day weekend, it'll be overgrown.
There's so many different tools nowadays.
My husband had a tree company, so whatever you need, you probably have.
Probably have it there.
I don't know if they,
And then I always ask people, are you using hand tool when you should be using a power tool? Right? Are you using hand cleaners because you don't feel like going back to the shed or the garage to get the loppers? Are you using loppers when you should be sawing? Are you sawing when someone should have a chainsaw? There's all these different levels. But sometimes you just want to get it done.
I would have never thought about the height of the lawnmower.
Yeah, it makes a difference.
Yeah, I would have never thought
It's
about it.
too
Not that
high.
I know, but,
It's too low, you want it to be like right about here.
and talking about shoes when you mow lawn.
Mhm. Yeah, you think that'd be an obvious one, but I see lots of people mowing flip flops. And I'm always like, "Ooh."
oh God, I see that all the time.
My cousin was mowing in his tennis shoes and, cut off part of his foot.
It's
So,
weird.
yeah, so,
I was gonna say, like, you have to be careful maybe of the time of day, like in the morning if the grass is wet, but you think
Yeah.
it's not as hot out, you say you're trying to get out there early, but like, little
And,
things like that.
Can you alter your terrain a little bit, like flower beds or where you have things planted? Can you make it a little friendlier to get around?
That step over that she has to get in and out of her garden, like you
Yeah,
can think
exactly.
about
And
that.
she's actually needs one knee replaced and it's broken the other ankle a couple times. So that was actually a lot of fun trying to get her in and out.
Yeah.
I just pull it up and.
Right, so
Yeah.
removing some obstacles, like she said, might be helpful, like literally removing it and putting something else down.
Yeah, that's actually, you can't tell, that's actually a little raised bed vegetable garden. And they used to have their vegetable garden all the way like an acre, the other end of the yard, 2 acres away. And we were gonna build a new one and I'm like, why is it over there? Because that's right along their patio. I'm like, you could just have it here, or you could just walk out the back door and it's right there, like, and they're like, oh, I guess that's a good idea, instead of lugging
So you
things.
move the whole garden?
Well, we were downsizing, so it's just a little raised vegetable bed, but it works for them. They don't have to drag water across the yard and it's all right there. I don't think I have better pictures of it, but. Yeah.
I think the Trying to think of what I hear the most about for gardening. Because we did talked about knees and backs, and I guess it's just arthritis in the hands, like you said, like, but there's those bigger grip tools that can be really nice, and like you said, those other ratchet ones.
Ratchets, yeah,
Ones.
the ratchet
That's cool,
prayers
I
and
like it.
loppers, those are very helpful, because you can
Yeah.
cut with a lot less energy and force, because it does it for you.
Yeah,
And then, you know, if you're wearing grippy garden gloves, you're gonna have a better grip on the tool.
Well,
It's
that's
gonna be
true,
a lot less energy than if you're, you know, sliding around on the tool, and if it's a nice handle that you can grip. It's not slippery, that makes a difference as well.
Maybe I'll ask for those for Mother's Day.
there you go.
Easy gift, right?
It is, it is.
Look at that little gate thing. Last year I was cutting the, you know, the dead things off of hostas. I hate them when they're dead. You know, they bloom purple and then they die. So I'm trimming those, standing, of course. And, Joel, they were, there's an edge there that had all been edged all the way around it. My husband was like, you better be careful. I'm like, I'm good. And so as soon as I said that, I lost my balance because there's a, you know, there's a difference when it's edged. And his back was turned. I said, hey, Joel, it's like what I said, I'd spit a header in the hospice. I like totally spread eagle and this whole thing of the hospice. And Joel's like, I told you, I'm like,
Caught your fall.
I didn't get hurt, but you know, I'm like, so that's the joke, you know, with the gardening, you know, don't do any headers in the hospice.
Okay, so I'm gonna
Uh-oh.
give you the punchline here, you already heard my
I know.
story. This is a fractured ankle related to gardening.
Okay, what did we not do right?
So I was on a slope and I was weeding and I had my thing back here and I was trying to get down to get that one weed because I didn't want to move my feet because I was on a slope.
Right,
And I lost my balance. I fell to the left. My foot was wedged. There was a little Belgian block border here on the sidewalk and my foot was wedged there. So I just kept going. I went completely over and I fractured my ankle right there on the front sidewalk. Fortunately, nobody was walking by. But yeah, so, you know, I try to follow my advice, but stuff happens,
and then
right?
you
So
heard that one.
if we can be more preventative, you know, but I'm one of those, you know, make a list, get it done.
Mhm.
Trying to get one, I was just gonna.
I was gonna say, is that one damn or something?
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
Oh my God, oh, by the
yeah,
way.
and that was just like a week and a half ago, so.
You gotta wait.
Tis the season.
Still was generous to come and do a talk,
I
so.
know.
I'm not doing anything. So I'm like, yeah, I can still do it. You don't mind me.
On the far side here, right?
Oh, that's a bulb plant directly. Oh, you turned right on the question.
I
It's one
could,
of those round things that's got like a blade underneath it, you push it down in the soil, turn it, then when you lift it up, it brings the soil.
Talks about some kind of a thing that like, I think motorized or something.
They do make an auger for your drill, so you can get an auger for your drill, and that's, I forgot about that. Yeah, it's
Oh,
really fun,
nice.
because then you just drill your holes, go in and out, and then you put your bulbs in, and put it back in. Yeah, so you can get a bulb auger. That's the old fashioned,
Joel would like that.
which is elbow tendonitis galore. You plant
well,
50
if
bulbs,
you're doing a lot of
right,
planting, yeah.
I really appreciate you guys coming in today.
It's interesting.
There's just a lot of things to think
Even for a
about.
non-gardener, it was interesting.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And it, you know, this can pertain to everyday activities as well.
Right,
you know, if
you
you
think about
it.
the dishwasher, I absolutely.
That's like
I
my
just
favorite
think that's
example.
When you-
Well, can you make us better gardeners just with a green thumb with any tips? Because I'm learning as I go here.
You know what I can give you the website, Penn State Master Gardeners. And they give you all this wonderful information if you go to the website. And they have all sorts of like things you can print out that are all Penn State research based information. So if it's vegetables or herbs or pruning fruit trees or growing raspberries, they have so much information that's accessible to the public. And then there's a website as well, or on the website, there's a number you can call if you have questions, and Master Gardeners will answer your questions.
Really?
You can send them samples or pictures of samples if you've got a plant that's not very healthy and you're not sure what's going on. Yeah, that's what Master Gardeners do. They're there to educate public on good horticultural
Do you have
practice.
any deer issues at your place?
Not in my yard because it's fenced in.
Because we had that, were you here when she?
Bunnies. They can get in through the
Deer and
fence.
groundhogs. You know, I have a little yard. To me, it's an urban, I live in Oakland, so I have this little yard, city yard, I call it, you know, it's urban compared to growing up out in the middle of the country with the neighbors, right? But
Mhm.
we still have groundhogs, deer, rabbits.
Yeah.
My daughter and son-in-law used to live in Redmond.
Mhm.
They'd be coming home and then all of a
Stick that
sudden
out
there's
there.
a deer walking
I can
down.
take it for you. I didn't
So
realize
I backed
that
into
wasn't
the
me.
driveway.
I thought that was something else, sorry.
Oh, you're okay. Yeah.
You're
allowed to take it as well.
So it really bugs me that they're just hanging out right there, you know, they should be up in the more rural area. where we live. I almost did, I came in the house one night, and I said, I almost did. It was like really rare, though, in the driveway, it was just standing there, I almost backed into it, you know, like.
I'm not sure where they all come from. I saw a great article, there's a great article actually was today with David Attenborough, I follow him. And there's a picture of a dead bee in his hand, and its little, the bee's little legs are filled with pollen, it's bright yellow. And it says, to be aware, I actually shared it too. People be aware of spraying because nobody likes dandelions and they ruin your yard, but that's their number one food.
It's the
For the
earliest
spring?
food for them,
Huh?
it's one of the first pollens that come out in the spring, so
And they're
yes,
starving, I mean,
it's a
they,
huge pollinator food.
well, that's not starving, sorry, they're being poisoned.
Yeah.
And not, they say, don't spray until the, what do they say, the blueberry, blackberries have bloomed or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know that one.
The people
they're all
spraying their
right.
yards now, and it's killing the bees.
What is it still too early to start right now because it's getting too cold at night? Planting?
Frost, our last frost day is usually around Mother's Day. So you don't wanna put like fresh new
Stuff out.
stuff outside. You can do trees and shrubs right now. That's not a big deal, you can grow grass, plant grass seed right
Yeah.
now.
That's
But
the
it's-
freeze.
Yeah, but it depends on where you are too, like
Yeah.
I don't get the frost as much as they do further up on the hill. But, you know, your own micro environment can make a difference as well.
Can anyone take the master gardener thing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like it's all volunteers, but you apply to the program and then you take classes with them from like October to April, I think it is.
Hmm.
And then you have to do like 10 hours of continuing education and I think 20 hours of volunteer work every year to keep up your status. But there's
Nice.
all kinds of different things you can do. Some of them are like working on the garden line, so you're not doing any cool stuff. Or, you know, rain barrels and composting. And the demo gardens like at North Park, South Park, they have some beautiful demo gardens with herb gardens, pollinator gardens, all kinds of stuff. There a good chance it's worth
Cool.
checking it out. But yeah, it's a wealth of information. If you just go on the website, there's a ton of stuff available there.
Hmm.
It's
Those
just
are all
questions.
online.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Yes,
Any
you're
other?
welcome. Thanks for listening to me.
Mhm.
Lots of things to think about. I have to, get my